Hello and welcome to episode 508 of the official Established2Run.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva, and we are entering championship week of fantasy football season. Shout out to you if you made your season-long final, if you made a best ball final. Huge accomplishment. We're happy for you. Evan, how's it going today?
It's going very well. Looking forward to Jamal Williams over the final 2 weeks clinching this rushing TD lead. I'm very hopeful. We'll talk about some of the implications, some of the things that could lead to that on both of these shows, really.
All right, on today's show, we are going to go team by team through each NFC squad, talking through everything we saw and what it means going forward. Before we get into it, here, a reminder, this podcast is indeed brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. This playoff best ball stuff that they run, I mean, I don't want to say it's like the softest thing that I know, because there's a lot of soft stuff out there if you look really hard for it. But there's going to be so many dead teams in playoff best ball because the teams don't even, for a lot of reasons, namely people don't give themselves a chance to have 4, 5, 6 players or whatever they need in the Super Bowl playing against each other. So we do have strategy articles up. We have strategy podcast up. We have rankings up for Underdog Fantasy. If you have not tried playoff format yet, if you have not tried Underdog Fantasy yet, use promo code ETR when you sign up. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Again, promo code ETR at underdogfantasy.com. All right, let's start with Arizona. I was actually happy for Trace McSorley. You know, like, I don't follow Penn State football that closely, but I was happy for him to get a chance. Unfortunately, it was because Kyler Murray blew his knee out, because Colt McCoy went down as well. I thought Trace played hard in the game. I thought he played reasonably for his talent level. Obviously, he was not great in the game. That flowed through to problems for DeAndre Hopkins, for Marquise Brown, etc. Marquise Brown was reportedly late to a meeting and therefore only played 66% of the snaps in this game. I don't know if that's true or not. The story of the Cardinals' late season, though, continues to be James Conner. 22 out of 23 running back touches for James Conner in this game. Dude has played 266 out of 280 snaps over the last 4 games, 4 meaningless games, I would add. They might not be doing a service to him for his career, but they're doing a service for fantasy players who have him. Evan, what do you think of the Cardinals, who had a really good chance to beat Tom Brady in that game there?
Yeah, but, you know, the Bucs just, they stink. The Cardinal, I mean, it should surprise no one that, you know, a little bit of Carlton Davis, a lot of Trace McSorley translated to DeAndre Hopkins getting nothing done in this particular game. The only thing I would otherwise strongly add to what you were talking about was the reemergence of Greg Dortch, who did not play barely at all in the previous game, and all of a sudden popped up as the Cardinals' primary slot receiver. In some ways benefited from the scaled back usage of Marquise Brown, but Greg Dortch coming back almost out of nowhere to play a huge prominent role, finished with 10 catches in this game, 11 targets. That was not something that I was anticipating.
He was a big part of the game plan too. And like you said, I was not ready for that either, because he had 3 carries also. I mean, they were trying to get the ball into Greg Dortch's hands for sure. We'll see on all their injury stuff going forward. Atlanta was Desmond Ritter's second start, of course. I thought he played better here, 23 out of 33 for 218 yards. At a minimum, he knows where his bread is buttered. Drake London now has a 34% target share in 2 games with Desmond Ridder. Dude is just a baller and a target earner. He was at 27% target share with Marcus Mariota. So that's good, I think. Obviously, this team is the most run-heavy team in the entire NFL. It's been that way for most of the season, and that flows through to Tyler Algier, who I know a lot of people are excited about right now. Evan, what did you see out of the Falcons game against the Ravens?
Yeah, I think that they might be onto something with Tyler Algier. I mean, at this point, he's had a really, really nice rookie season. He was, a 5th-round pick out of BYU. He can play in the passing game. I mean, he had set season highs in targets and receptions in this game. He was good in the passing game at BYU as well. You know, they'll likely bring in talent at the running back position, but I think that going into 2023 right now, I think that you could say that Tyler Algier is probably the favorite for touches in the Atlanta backfield entering next season.
Oh, yeah, and they have shown no willingness whatsoever to extend the workload of Cordero Patterson, and Caleb Huntley is done for the year. And so if you're grinding hard into week 17 and week 18, yep, Tyler Algier certainly needs to be on the radar. Let's go to Carolina. God, man. Our Lions just got their ass kicked. Like from the opening whistle, they got their ass kicked.
Yeah.
Panthers come out and just run all over Detroit. And I know I had made a big deal about Detroit's run defense, and they were playing very, very well. Deontay Foreman runs for 165 yards. Chuba Hubbard runs for 125 yards, just out of the stone blue. Really, really, really weird. It was positive, I thought, for DJ Moore that even in that script where Carolina dominated from the jump, DJ Moore still goes 583-1 on a 32% target share from Sam Darnold. We know the dude is a baller. What'd you see out of Carolina's surprising blowout of the Lions?
Yeah, I mean, the Lions were playing elite run defense for the last month plus, but the Panthers, man, they're tough. I mean, they play hard for Steve Wilks. I think that he's probably, I don't want to say probably, but I think he's positioned himself to have the interim tag removed. We know what they're going to try to do every single week, the Panthers, and we have to give a shout out to Sam Darnold, who, I mean, a lot of people just left him for dead, myself included. But he has played really well. I was looking at some EPA per dropback stuff among quarterbacks. Since he's taken over, he's like number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's playing at a really, really high level right now. 11.4 yards per pass attempt in this game. Now, the sample size is small. You know, Sam Darnold has a history of being streaky, and then all of a sudden things start to go south a little bit, and like he goes south with him. So I don't want to say anything, you know, vehement about the future of Sam Darnold, but credit where it's due. He's played really, really well. He's gotten the ball to DJ Moore. Entering week 17 and 18, I think you can confidently fire up DJ Moore because Sam Darnold is underneath center and because he's playing at such a high level.
Let's go to the Chicago Bears. Really disappointing rushing day for Justin Fields in bad weather against the Bills. Fields rushes just 7 times for 11 yards. Again, we know he's going for the record. He now needs roughly 200 rushing yards over the final 2 games to break the record. They face the Lions next. I don't really know what happened, why he was not more successful or ran more in that game, but certainly something to watch. Khalil Herbert was back for the Bears. He ended up with 9 opportunities compared to 20 for David Montgomery, and that's kind of how I thought it would go. Like, David Montgomery had played well. Khalil Herbert had been out for a while. I still think that the rest of the year it is David Montgomery in the 1A role, 65% of the touches going forward. What do you think of the Bears, who really, you know, never put up a threat to the Bills in that weather game in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, Justin Fields had been relying on massive long runs, you know, and all of a sudden he hit some negative regression, you know, with regard to his rushing efficiency. And this was kind of his, you know, floor game. And we know that he's already at a major disadvantage from a passing game standpoint, but the Bills are fundamentally sound on defense. They didn't allow him to get free onto the second level where he's so dangerous, and you see the result. They have no weapons in the passing game, so there's just no level of reliability for Justin Fields being able to overcome a slow rushing day because their passing game is so inept.
Let's go to Dallas. What a wild game this was against the Eagles, man. Dak Prescott and Gardner Minshew going toe-to-toe here. And credit to Dallas, who got it done. One way they got it done was this crazy long conversion. I believe it was like a 3rd and 30 or something crazy to T.Y. Hilton down the left sideline. T.Y. Hilton comes out of nowhere and runs 5 routes, but actually has a big game here. I would note that Noah Brown, who I actually kind of liked a little bit in this spot, Noah Brown ran 35 routes, but caught just 1 ball for 5 yards. So that was super disappointing. They do play the Thursday game this week, do the Cowboys. I know Tony Pollard's on the injury report. Sounds like he's going to be okay, but quick turnaround here against, I believe they're playing the Titans on Thursday. What do you see out of the Cowboys win over the Fighting Gardner Minshews?
Just an awesome game from Dak Prescott. You know, on the heels of him, he was starting to get criticism for throwing interceptions, and not all the interceptions were his fault. And, you know, interceptions are individual plays. You have to look at what happened on each play. And, you know, sometimes quarterbacks that are being aggressive will end up throwing interceptions because they're trying to make plays, right? This particular game, Dak Prescott was, I mean, this is probably his best game of the year. I think it was his best game of the year in fantasy. We saw him start to run. He had 6 carries for 41 yards. He had a couple of designed runs. just absolutely destroyed Philadelphia in the middle of the field with CeeDee Lamb over and over and over again. Avonte Maddox went out with a painful toe injury. I think he's actually done for the season potentially. And the Eagle slot corner. And I mean, the Cowboys were just ruthless attacking Philadelphia in the middle of the field. One of the things that we should have talked about more, and I did mention it in matchups, but when we on the shows, we should have talked about T.Y. Hilton potentially hurting Noah Brown.
Yeah.
I think, we hadn't seen anything from T.Y. Hilton, so we would have been going in blind. But I think we maybe should have talked a little bit more about that.
That's fair, and we should have for sure. He only ran 5 routes though, so like if I know he runs 5 routes, it wouldn't have probably stopped me from being on Noah Brown a little bit. But yeah, I hear you. It was definitely a threat. Lions, God, needed it.
One thing I wanted to mention: Michael Gallup lost. He almost had a 2-touchdown game. He lost a touchdown in the sun. That sun at Jerry World is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, that is just ridiculous. Like they can't fix that. They can't patch that up.
I know. Get some shades. The Lions, really bad loss for the over 7.5, which I'm still confident in for that alt over 7.5. But yeah, also devastating loss for the Dan Campbell Coach of the Year stuff. Just not a good game from the Lions. Shane Zystra scored 3 TDs somehow. Just a really weird game from the Lions. They're home against the Bears next week. It's a must win for them to make the playoffs as they still have the tiebreaker over the Packers do the Lions. But what you see out of their really bad performance down there in Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm starting to get nervous about the Jamal Williams stuff, honestly, because he hasn't been scoring recently. He's 1 ahead of Derrick Henry right now, I believe. I believe he's got 14, and Derrick Henry has 13. But I mean, it would be nice to get a score here within the last 2 weeks. There have been some rumors that Derrick Henry might sit in Week 7. We'll talk about that on the AFC show. But yeah, I mean, I need some touchdowns here from Jamal Williams. DeAndre Swift 5 touches in this game.
Yeah, home against the Bears in the Coors Field is a really good spot for Jamal Williams to score touchdowns. This game does have the highest total on the week, does Lions, Bears. So I'm excited about that. I know we mentioned DJ Chark a bunch on here. I just want to reiterate, like, when you have this ADOT that's so big and you get 5 or 6 targets, you're going to have some air balls, but you're going to have some big games. DJ Chark, 5 targets in this game for 108.0. Doesn't mean it's sticky at all, but he has these opportunities, and it's at least worth, I think, keeping in mind. Packers played a Sunday game this week. Of course, the main slate was on Saturday. Disappointing result for Aaron Jones, I'm sure, for a lot of people out there. He did hurt his ankle. He came into the game with an ankle injury. Then he said he got rolled up on his first carry of the second half. He only ends up playing 25 snaps in this game. A.J. Dillon, 38. Patrick Taylor, 5. Sounds like Aaron Jones is going to be fine, but I don't think he's 100%. So it's kind of a tough click right now on Aaron Jones in DFS. Obviously, in season long, if he plays, you're going to have to play him. But Packers are alive and well, man. I mean, they have a very live shot to get into the playoffs now. What do you see out of their comeback win over the Dolphins on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. The ongoing concern is Aaron Jones. I feel like he's not fine.
Yeah.
He was obviously debilitated by this injury. Spent a lot of time like on the trainer's table. I'm worried about it.
Christian Watson also hurt his hip in this game. Sounds like he might be able to play through it. And I thought he was actually playing a pretty good game until he got hurt. They're home versus the Vikings next, outside in an NFC North battle. Rams. I mean, I get, you're home against Denver, and Denver's a dead team, and Russ is incompetent, and Nathaniel Hackett got fired, which we'll talk about on the next pod. But still, impressive performance from the Rams. Impressive performance from Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield won 24 out of 28 in this game.
Yeah.
And then Cam Akers goes out and careers it. And I don't know how Cam Akers teams are alive in best ball, but I saw a lot of people with Cam Akers stuff. I almost got screwed by Cam Akers in best ball. Thankfully, I was able to hang on late, but Cam Akers careers it. And people somehow had him in best ball after the season that he's had, which is crazy. Tyler Higbee, I thought, also played a great game. This Baker stuff, though, man, Baker is putting good stuff on tape. You mentioned Sam Darnold. Baker's putting decent stuff on tape now. Also, what do you think of the Rams? Just absolute blowout. I mean, massacre of the Broncos.
I've been trying to wrap my head around what happened here. Did we miss something here with regard to any members of the Rams offense? And I think that it's just one of those things that happens late in the season when the opponent absolutely lies down, because the Broncos look like they quit early in the game. And so I don't know if I'm going to have any strong takeaways from this. Baker did not play well in the previous game. He had that comeback against the Raiders on Thursday night or whatever it was. And I mean, that was nice, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm not going to like pretend to have takeaways from this, because I think that the Broncos just lied down.
Yeah. And we'll talk about some of the Broncos stuff when we get there. Russ was a total disaster once again.
And I've already seen we'll talk about it on the Denver show.
Vikings. We had TJ Hawkinson as the best tight end play on the slate, and I just kind of waived it because I hate paying $5K for tight end. But dude just goes out there and absolutely breaks the slate. This is how TJ Hawkinson's 17-game pace with the Vikings. He's played 8 games with the Vikings. 110 catches.
Wow.
943 yards, 6 touchdowns. Dude has been awesome since he got to the Vikings. Minnesota, of course, they have an outside chance to get the bye still. They need to win out. They need the Eagles to lose their final 2 games. So Minnesota still has plenty to play for. In other words, they can still get that very pivotal round 1 bye. What did you see out of the Vikings game against the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we've talked about on the shows recently is that Kirk Cousins, when he gets hot, he can, put up numbers with anybody.
Yeah.
In the league from a passing standpoint. Obviously, he doesn't give you a whole lot, rushing, but from a passing standpoint, he can absolutely light it up. He's surrounded by a lot of talent right now in Minnesota, and he's on one of these hot streaks. Playing indoors in a game like this, we should have seen it coming that the Vikings were going to have a big offensive day, that this game had shootout potential. And we did talk about that quite a bit late in the week. And Kirk absolutely delivered. He's a fantasy starter for the final 2 weeks for sure. He's playing at a really, really high level. And he really wasn't playing that well, even when they were racking up a lot of wins in the first half of the season in the new offense. Everything's clicking right now.
Right. And the field was on it. I mean, Minnesota stuff was among the most owned stuff on the entire slate on Sunday. By the way, Justin Jefferson now needs just 209 more receiving yards to break Calvin Johnson's record for the most receiving yards in a season. Obviously, Calvin did it in 16 games. Justin Jefferson will likely do it in 17 games unless he goes completely nuke this week. New Orleans. I mean, there was so much overblown about weather stuff, and, you can argue about that all you want. The weather in this New Orleans-Cleveland game was absolutely wild. I played in all my season-long teams, and actually on all my FanDuel teams. I didn't play much DFS, but where I did play on FanDuel, I used Taysom. And I actually thought they should have used Taysom even more than they did with the weather. No Landry, no Olave, no Mark Ingram. The Kamara stuff is a mess. He's not playing on pass downs. I actually thought Taysom was going to play more. He did get 956-1 rushing here, but good win for the Saints in this crazy weather regardless. Any takeaways there? And I saw Underhill, shout out to him, wrote an article about Kamara's third down usage. So yeah, it's been weird stuff on Kamara for sure. Any thoughts on the Saints?
No, I just shout out to you for a great call on Taysom. A couple other people I saw that, fantasy analysts that are good fantasy analysts got on that as well. I think, it became clear by the end of the week that he was going to be a great season-long play. Mm-hmm. And you can play him at tight end on FanDuel, right?
Yep. Let's go to the Giants. So, Giants stuff was very popular this past week because Daniel Jones finally was in a good spot. He had been in weird spots, outdoor spots, tough matchups. And in those, it's hard when you're playing with Slayton and Hodgins and Richie James and Bellinger to have really good games. Here, in a good spot, inside against Minnesota, goes off for 24 DraftKings points. I thought played a really good real-life game as well. Giants are in a must-win spot this week. If they can beat the Colts at home this week, they're in as a wild card. We've talked about Coach of the Year a lot, and I'm obviously biased with a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to vote, I think I would vote Dable. He has done an incredible job with not a lot of talent, in my opinion. But anyways, what you see out of the Giants game against the Vikings?
Yeah, and I put up my picks for the awards late last week, and I had Dan Campbell as the head coach. I think I would switch it to Brian Daboll. And Brian Daboll, as of coming off this week, and Brian Daboll, as of last week, was still like anywhere from 15-1 to 25-1 to win Coach of the Year. So that was a pretty good bet if you could make it. Of course, they did lose this game, but I think I would nudge him ahead of Dan Campbell right now. But I don't know. Do you think that Sirianni is still the favorite?
I still think Sirianni is most likely to win it. It's just that I just think Daboll's a little bit more deserving because he has so much less talent. I mean, so much less talent. But Sirianni is a fine candidate as well, and he's the massive favorite right now for sure.
So this is not the way that I think things should be done when it comes to the awards. But I feel like when the AP writers or whatever, all the people, I think it's 50 writers vote, that they're going to put Howie Roseman as executive of the year and then give Coach of the Year potentially to someone else? Or do you think that they're going to give executive of the year to Howie Roseman and head coach of the year to Nick Sirianni? I think Roseman has to get executive of the year.
Oh, I even mentioned that on the solo pod. I mean, Howie Roseman is running circles around the rest of the NFL right now. Obviously, I think every award should be considered in a vacuum.
Right.
What you do with executive of the year should have nothing to do with what you do for coach of the year or anything else.
Right.
These voters, I don't think like that. And that's kind of the thing when you're betting on these awards. It's you have to get into the head of the voters. You might be right. I actually hadn't even thought about this because there's no market for executive of the year. So yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of Eagles.
Oh, one thing though, I want to mention, like Daniel Jones played really well. I expected him to play well. I expected him to have a good game, so I mean, he met expectations, maybe exceeded them because he threw for 330 yards. Something to know, to keep in mind, and most people should probably know this by now, but the Vikings pass defense is a huge, huge problem and something that's going to haunt them in the playoffs. I mean, it's a big, big problem. It also creates shootout scenarios. But I wanted to mention that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, they've been getting flamed for a while now, have the Vikings in pass defense, especially on the perimeter. Eagles. But, I think we all thought Gardner Minshew would play well. He made a couple mistakes in this game, which is understandable, but he did play well because everything around him, he's set up for success, like we talked about last week. Elite offensive line, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert was back. And by the way, Goddard was not only back, but he had a huge role, 37 routes on 42 Gardner Minshew dropbacks, only 3 targets. But I thought he looked really good on those targets going forward. It's kind of noisy, that small 7% target share. Eagles still need to win a game to clinch a bye here. Like, they need to win one of their final 2 games to clinch the first round bye. Doesn't mean they're going to push Jalen Hurts to play, but if he can play, I think he will play. What do you see out of the Eagles, who honestly almost went down there to Dallas and probably should have won the game with Gardner Minshew? What do you think about the Eagles right now?
I still feel pretty good about them. I still think they're a really good team. Gardner Minshew turned it over 3 times here. He did consistently move the offense, though, and it goes to show how good the talent around him. Although, Lane Johnson, has been such a difference maker for them at right tackle. Did you see what? I know he's hurt. Did you see? Is he done for the regular season?
I thought it looked like he was going to be okay. I hadn't looked into it recently, but it sounds like he's going to be okay. But yeah, we'll see.
That's something that we'll definitely be monitoring. Yeah. But against Dallas, 0 sacks taken by Gardner Minshew on 40 dropbacks. And they did show this was very much a back and forth affair until the Cowboys pulled away a little bit in the fourth quarter. But I mean, this was a very much a neutral script affair. And like, they let Gardner Minshew throw the ball.
No change in the game plan for the Eagles. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No change in the game plan. I mean, obviously their quarterback, Gardner Minshew, going to run for 100 yards like Jalen Hurts does, like on the regular. But, but you're right. I mean, there was no change in the game plan. And again, it goes to show how much talent they have around Gardner Minshew. And look, Gardner Minshew is a very functional spot starter quarterback, but man, they are just absolutely loaded with talent. And again, that's why I think that Howie Roseman deserves executive of the year.
By the way, I misspoke on Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson is out for the rest of the regular season with an abdominal tear. Eagles are hopeful that he's back for the playoffs. So not good there for the rest of the regular season for the Eagles. Lane Johnson, very important part of their offensive line. San Francisco, this was one that maybe we should have been on, man. San Francisco does not have a lot to play for. Like, they can't move up that much. They can't move down that much. They're not going to get the bye. And so maybe we should have seen coming CMC losing a little bit of work here. He was ahead of Tyrion Davis-Price 39-13 in snaps, but it was just 15-9 in carries. I mean, I think they're still playing for a round one home game, but I can understand them backing off some of their guys a little bit here, especially when they're blowing out the Washington Commanders as they were on Sunday. But again, we've talked about it since Jimmy Garoppolo went down. This team remains a very serious Super Bowl contender despite having to go to Brock Purdy. What did you see out of the Niners?
Well, I think that Brock Purdy has something going with George Kittle.
Yeah.
They are just on fire over the last couple of weeks. And that's a good thing. I mean, the 49ers have been needing to throw the ball to George Kittle more for a long time. Brock Purdy only 25 dropbacks here, 8 targets for George Kittle. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Brock Purdy continues to engineer the offense like a veteran. Again, this system – and I don't want to take away anything from Brock Purdy, though, because Brock Purdy is a really good athlete. He's making throws on the run that Jimmy Garoppolo cannot make, and he's been extremely efficient, almost 11 yards per pass attempt here against Washington. It's a combination of the system, but it's also – I mean, you got to give the credit to Brock Purdy. He's delivering the football where the pass catchers can get him. And even without Debo in there, and it sounds like he might be back this week, they've still got a lot of talent. George Kittle, Ayuk went for over 80 yards. Juwan Jennings has been a very capable slot receiver and fill in for Debo to an extent, and of course Christian McCaffrey.
Debo returning would affect George Kittle's projection. In other words, like obviously Debo is a target earner, and he will affect George Kittle's projection. But I agree with you. The way they're using George Kittle right now has opened up the offense, and I know Kyle Shanahan sees that. Seahawks. So they go to Kansas City. It was very cold. They didn't have Tyler Lockett, and Geno struggled. And maybe that should have been more expected. Tyler Lockett is such a good player when you replace him with Laquan Treadwell and Marquise Goodwin. It is a massive downgrade. You're also going to Arrowhead, a tough place to play. It was also 10 degrees or whatever. Seattle is still live for the wild card, but market is not giving them much of a chance. Like the Jets are a 2.5-point favorite in Seattle this week, which surprised me, and which surprised me a little bit. I mean, I like the Jets, but that surprised me a little bit. Good news for Seattle is that despite not practicing at all last week, Kenneth Walker was not limited, had almost all the running back touches, and Seattle is still live for the wild card. They do need to win out, I believe, to see out of the Seahawks, who never really had a chance against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed that Marquise Goodwin played behind Laquan Treadwell, who I believe
he got banged. I think he got banged up in the game, but yeah, he did.
Okay, yeah. I mean, still four targets, no catches for Marquise Goodwin. I mean, I liked him as a play, and he totally flopped. They continue to use 3 tight ends. I mean, in this game, Colby Parkinson this has been the story for the Seahawks at tight end all year. Will Dissly will outsnap Noah Fant. Noah Fant can make plays, but he doesn't get that many opportunities. Then Colby Parkinson plays just enough to affect the other guys. The 3-way tight end committee has been killing Noah Fant all year.
Let's go to the Bucs. And as you mentioned, I mean, Bucs played horrible again for almost all of the game. They come alive late against an Arizona team and somehow escape in overtime. If you watch the game, Leonard Fournette reportedly rumors, and I think he tweeted something about having like a foot injury or something like that, and then he deleted it. Yeah. He tweeted it and then deleted it, but it didn't affect his usage. He outsnapped Rachaad White 49-29. Leonard Fournette had 30 opportunities in this game. Rachaad White only had 11, but again, it's playoff Lenny, it's late season Lenny, it's fantasy playoff Lenny. He's clearly going to gut it out. What do you see out of the Bucs comeback win over the Cardinals on Sunday night?
Well, they were rotating the guys pretty evenly for most of the game, but then it seems like late in the game, they clearly trust Leonard Fournette more. This is the second week in a row, really, that has happened, where it's an even rotation, and then it's crunch time, and all of a sudden, like Leonard Fournette is the main back. So that's sort of how I think that they're doing it right now. Passing game, like Mike Evans continues to just – I don't even know what the deal is. Tom Brady, this was maybe his worst game of the year.
Oh, he was horrible.
Things considered.
He was horrible.
all things considered, I think maybe his worst game of the year against Arizona. Full weapons supporting cast, and I mean he doesn't look good right now.
By the way, only I would get excited about something like this. I'm not sure if anybody even noticed, but Cade Otton ran 40 routes and Cameron Brate ran 4. And I'm excited about that because I'm scraping so hard at tight end and DFS, wherever else. Cade Otton with this usage can have big games, like 40 routes with Tom Brady, playing tight end and being athletic like Cade Otton is. Like, I'm actually kind of excited about it. So we'll see how that goes going forward. I know he didn't have a good game, had a couple drops, but they tried to run plays for him. They ran a couple screens for him. They didn't connect. But yeah, Cade Otton is in the mix.
The explanation that Greg Cosell of NFL Films has given for why Tom Brady is struggling so much this season, and it's interesting because I'll listen to some analysts that say, "Oh, I think Tom Brady, he looks fine." His biggest problem this year has been he's like shook from, he doesn't trust the pass protection. Donovan Smith was out for this game, but he's been terrible all year, a holding penalty machine. Tristan Wirfs has been out. And so what Greg Cosell says that Tom Brady is doing, like he's just straight bailing, and he's throwing a lot of passes that are like almost intentionally incomplete because he doesn't want to get hit, and he thinks he's going to get hit on every play. Mm-hmm. He's got he's kind of shell shocked right now, doesn't trust his pass protection. You're already starting to see rumors that Tom Brady isn't going to be back with the Bucs in 2023.
Yep. By the way, Bucs obviously was very good for their playoff hopes that they won that game. They still must beat the Panthers Sunday to clinch the NFC South. Big game there for them coming up in Week 17. Last one we're going to do today is the Washington football team, aka the Commanders. So I don't know what they expected out of Taylor Heinicke going to face the best defense in the entire NFL in San Francisco, but predictably, Taylor Heinicke did not play well, gets benched for Carson Wentz. On the good side of things, Jahan Dotson, shout out Penn State, leads the team in targets. Jahan Dotson now has 24 targets over the last 3 weeks. Washington football team is still alive to make the playoffs. I believe they need to win out. They need to beat Cleveland this week, Dallas in the final week, but certainly not out of the realm of possibility. What did you see from the Washington football team, who predictably struggled in San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz theoretically gives him more upside, but, we've been through the Carson Wentz experience, and I don't know. At running back, I think that the big news is that Antonio Gibson is dealing with another injury of some sort, and Jonathan Williams came in and played in place of him. And Brian Robinson continued. Now, he did not have an efficient game here against San Francisco. Very few running backs do, but he's racking up boatloads of touches on a weekly basis.
For sure. All right. That is going to do it for this NFC Team by Team podcast. We'll be back later tonight for the AFC Team by Team podcast, so we continue to get set for Fantasy Football Championship Week. If you've not tried Establish the Run yet, or you're on a weekly or monthly, we do have a rest of season sale going on right now. Head to the subscribe page and check it out. You'll see all the details there. For Evan, for producer Luke, for the digital media king, Steven in the background, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.